Hello, brothers, and welcome to Giving Day 2022. It's been a feature over the years for us during Giving Day to spend time with the executive director of the fraternity and to find out what's news and what's going to be happening in the future. And we're going to do that again this year. We're going to spend time with Rob Caudill, who is the executive director of the fraternity, and he's a graduate of the University of Akron. And so as we get into it today, Rob, I'm going to have a couple of questions that I know that brothers have been asking. Give you a chance to provide some feedback. But brothers, I want to thank all of those who are going to participate in Giving Day today and make a gift to the fraternity or the foundation. We appreciate what you do. We know that there are many brothers who are watching who have either given earlier this year or going to plan to give a little bit later this year. We appreciate you doing that. We can't do it without you. So, Rob, let's get started.
Sure thing.
Let's talk about Phi Gamma Delta.
We can. Well, Ben, let me first echo my thanks particularly to our graduate brothers out there. Plain and simple, we couldn't do it without you. Phi Gamma Delta has existed and thrived for 174 years through no small part of the continued efforts of our graduate brothers and their commitment to our fraternity. So I want to say also thank you for everything that you do and that you will do on this Giving Day.
Thanks, brothers. Well, Rob, one of the things we've always done is to spend a little time talking about what the past year has been like. Mm-hmm. And so share with us what you think the brothers need to know and how this past year has gone for the fraternity.
So this past year, as we think about roughly the fall of 2021 and into the spring, has been a year of different still, right? I say different still. In a lot of ways, we see ourselves getting back to normal as we have societally, but still some changes, some nuances, and some figuring things out again. So while it's not been a year without its challenges, we start to see a lot more of the reinvigoration of that Phi Gamma Delta spirit in a lot of ways. A couple neat things that happened this year. Ben, did you know we surpassed 200,000 initiates in Phi Gamma Delta over the past year? All time, 200,000 brothers. So as we've gotten into more of that, it's interesting to think about that legacy that our brothers really have on the fraternity. And speaking of that legacy, there's a lot of new things coming about, and a lot of new efforts that are going to be very important to our future. One very important piece is the fraternity's commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Over the past year, we saw the appointment of our first ever Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging in Devere Kuchner, an appointed general officer and a professional in this space to help guide some of these efforts, as well as a staff member along those same lines to help us create those resources, those tools for our chapters who really want to embrace ideas of equity and inclusion, and particularly belonging within their chapters in a way to help Phi Gamma Delta better resemble our campus communities around us. And I think, while it may seem small to us because it's something we're used to, we had our first in-person event again this year, big person event with the 22 Fiji Academy, right? We had a lot of undergraduate leaders there, pushing 500 undergraduate and graduate leaders. And there was some very tough conversations had at this academy this year, as we really need to focus on some hazing prevention and some things that have not been going well in our chapters. We were very thankful to two families who joined us, being Evelyn and Jim Piazza and Rayan and Steve Groover, to tell their powerful stories and help our undergraduates understand the impact that hazing can have on a family and the need to eradicate it from our very existence.
Yeah, I was there for that part of the Fiji Academy, and it was very powerful and very moving.
It was.
And I thank them for being there to just share, because it's an emotional issue, obviously, for them, but we appreciate them being there. What else can we expect? I think you kind of introduced it earlier. This past year, the past 2 years, we've kind of called it, we've been in a pandemic. Well, I don't know what we're in now, but share with us a little bit about how our chapters are faring and what's been going on with chapters, because that's where I think a lot of brothers are going to be interested in what's happening on the ground.
Well, I think through the course of the year, we've seen a lot more return to normal, right? And our chapters are certainly back to work. So far this year, They've recruited more than 3,400 new members into Phi Gamma Delta, into their chapters. We see them engaging in philanthropy and service, and a couple of just quick highlights, and there are a lot more examples out there, but some great efforts by our undergraduate chapters. Alpha Sigma at Arizona State raised more than $60,000 for an organization called the TGen Center for Rare Childhood Disorders through its Shave to Save effort. That was really a fantastic effort by the chapter, but also a great effort by its graduates to really get behind that effort and support it, where they ultimately made and broke records, shattered records on their own campus for philanthropic efforts there at Arizona State. And we also saw like Caudill at Western Kentucky, just a great example of how fraternities can come together as a whole. Earlier this year, in 2021 rather, there was a tornado that came through Bowling Green, Kentucky, did significant damage, and those tornadoes, a series of tornadoes, did a lot of damage in Western Kentucky. And our Chi Eta chapter did what our Chi Eta chapter does. It came together as a group of men, along with many other fraternities on that campus, within 24 hours to clean up, to organize themselves, to repair the Bowling Green community and show their support of where they live and where they go to school. We've also seen, some of the big events come back on chapters in that regard, such as with Penn State and its Thon came back in a big way this year, raising several $100,000. Same with the University of Kentucky and its Dance Blue. So again, many other chapters getting engaged in those philanthropic efforts. But that's so much about what fraternity does. And it feels so good to be back to that sense of normalcy and be able to really get involved in our communities at that level. But that's not all that they've done, right? Our chapters still work to maintain a 3.1 grade point average across the board. We're seeing graduate events like pig dinners and the like start to come back. So I think overall, Phi Gamma Delta is starting to feel normal again. Not without some challenges, right, but starting to feel normal again.
Well, and as you were talking about kind of the last 2 years of disruption, but now kind of coming back, what have you noticed or seen any kind of change in the value of the fraternity system, or the kind of those things that our undergraduates pre-pandemic would have maybe taken for granted? It's gone, but what is there any information on what's the value out there for the fraternities?
Well, that's an important topic to talk about today, and probably one that we've never seen so important. Between the cost of college and the different opportunities for men on a college campus to engage in, and the behaviors that a small number of fraternity men engage in, which put a bad taste in young men's mouths about what fraternity is. All those things put together, it's important to really understand what is the benefit, what is the value. Now, to your question, is there something new? I don't know if there's anything new, but I think our undergraduates in particular might have appreciated certain aspects of the fraternity more in the last 2 years. But at the same time, we've also never been better positioned to fully understand the positive aspect of the fraternity experience. So let me talk about that for a minute. Ultimately, through research that Phi Gamma Delta has participated in with our interfraternal friends, we know a lot about the fraternity experience that we believed before but can never really prove, right? So, for example, we know that fraternity members experience stronger mental health and well-being compared to their peers. Research has been done and helped us conclude that, yes, while college men in particular today are experiencing loneliness and depression at greater levels than ever before, fraternity has never been so important to show and have that home away from home, to have that support system, such that when our men can engage in that, they experience those negative mental health factors at much lower rates than their unaffiliated peers, right? But it's also important to think about really what fraternity does to prepare men for the future. We say that fraternities really are and can be an accelerator for success, both in college and beyond. It's estimated that undergraduate students spend 90% of their time outside the classroom, okay? Fraternities capitalize on that time by setting high standards for themselves, for engaging in intentional programming and efforts to help prepare a man for his future and for his time in college. So a study of thousands of alumni from of diverse backgrounds shows that this holds true regardless of his socioeconomic status. That fraternities overall do a better job to prepare a man to excel in school and to excel in his future. Overall, 83% say they exhibit a higher leadership confidence because of their fraternity. 83% of fraternity men say, I'm a better leader because of my fraternity experience. And we also know that fraternities do create those lifelong connections. They create those connections to their campuses, their communities, and they do so better than their peers. Fraternities connect men with their campuses in ways that non-members just don't experience. Overall, they're more satisfied with their experience as a whole. They're more engaged in the classroom, and they're significantly more engaged outside the classroom and in their communities, whereas really where you see what we often think about as that positive fraternity experience being engaged and giving back. Our men do it, hands down, way more than their unaffiliated peers. All of this is really helping us and helping us to understand that impact of fraternity and to help show its importance. Its importance that you and I believe, and a lot of our graduate brothers believe as well, but maybe to this point has been difficult to prove. And we're just now getting more and more information that really helps us to say that unequivocally, and we're going to have even more in the future, which really excites me.
Well, I've been pleased with the fact that, you know, over the last, I don't know, 4 maybe 5 years, we've been doing a lot more research and trying to tie the experience to some data to support that. And I know you've had this experience, and I've had it over the years as well. When we go and visit with a graduate brother and we sit down, we've heard so many times, you know, being in the fraternity helped me later to be a better manager or leader in my work or in my community. And I think that's good to hear that it still holds true today for our current undergraduates.
And I would say even more so, right? There have even been some studies which have been longitudinal or looking at an interval maybe 10 years past. And we see many of those positive impacts that we've measured now over spans of time are increased even more today than they were a decade ago.
Just as you were talking, it reminded me, I was on the telephone about a month ago with a brother who is 101 years old. And when we got on the phone and I mentioned Phi Gamma Delta, one of the first things that he said was, he said, what a great experience. And as you were talking about that, I will never forget that. That's such a great response.
Yes.
So Rob, what should we be looking forward to in the next, I don't know, year in Phi Gamma Delta? We know things are always changing and we have to stay current, but what's ahead for us or for you to really to spend your time on?
Well, I think we've got to acknowledge and admit that we are not without challenges. And many of those challenges really revolve around behavior and behavior of a small number of men in our chapters. So, you know, working with the Archons over the past year, we've worked to identify several strategic objectives moving forward to really help us address those most pressing needs. So first and foremost, I want all of our brothers to understand that we are fully committed to confronting what we call those self-destructive behaviors. Those behaviors around alcohol, hazing, and sexual misconduct. Ultimately looking at us to look at our overall approaches. And in fact, over the past year, we've rolled out some programming to really rethink how we address and how we structurally work to approach our new member orientation period, right? To help us rethink how we really how we help our chapters to really build those positive relationships with their newest members in the best way possible. And that's been through a program we call Foundation of Courage. So we're committed to those efforts in a lot of ways, and it would take a lot more time than we have in this talk today to really explain those. But beyond those self-destructive behaviors, there's a lot more that we need to look at and are going to be looking at. We are fully committed to also rethinking and retooling how we engage our undergraduates in their entire membership experience. This year, we're in a small pilot phase, and within the next 6 months, we'll be fully rolling out a resume-worthy 4-year member development program called Built to Lead, a program built on those courageous leadership principles to really help our undergraduates really embrace the involvement and engagement in their chapters from day one through graduation, to help prepare themselves as individuals, as students, as future citizens, right? So really understanding and better engaging undergraduates throughout their experience. That's a core effort that the fraternity is going to be taking. We also recognize that we've got a little bit of backfilling to do, and we love our graduate brothers, and they support us in so many ways. But we're studying very carefully and identifying how we best improve the volunteer experience and the organizational effectiveness of that experience.
Okay.
You know, Phi Gamma Delta's volunteer structure has not changed significantly in more than 50 years. Although we've had many shifts in just societally in how we approach and how much somebody has time today. Nobody has time for anything today, right? We're all very busy. So we recognize that I need to really modernize and improve that very necessary support mechanism that is in place for undergraduate chapters by way of our volunteer advisors. You know, and finally, we're looking very closely at what we call smart growth, right? We say wholeheartedly recruitment is the lifeblood of the fraternity, and that is an absolute truth. It is our lifeblood. It's not just the number of men you bring in, it's the quality of men we bring in. So smart growth leverages the tools and resources we have available to us today that maybe we didn't have even 5 and 10 years ago, such that we position our undergraduate chapters to take advantage of technology, of processes and education, and also accountability to those processes in order to modernize undergraduate recruitment and identify the quality men that we know our undergraduate chapters want to have and need throughout their experience.
Well, yeah, and you know, I think almost all graduate brothers will agree to that statement of just the quality. Yeah, everything that we do starts at recruitment and finding those right men for that chapter on that campus, and bringing them in. You know, sharing our values and bringing them into the fraternity.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what we should be doing, and that's great. Several of the things that you've mentioned throughout the day, we talked a little bit about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about kind of the foundations of courage and the 4-year program. So a lot of the things that you've talked about are things, not all of them, but a lot of them, the foundation can help support. So
Absolutely.
Gifts from graduate brothers to the foundation help us to make grants to the fraternity, as well as just gifts from brothers to the fraternity help to fund those things as well. And so it's good that we're able to partner and participate with the fraternity on that. So we want to thank our brothers from those that are volunteering and those that donate on a regular basis for what they do. And again, we can't do it without you. You mentioned earlier, there are a lot of things we could probably spend a whole lot of time on, but we want to be sensitive to brothers' time watching videos on today. So any of the last, I'm gonna give you the last cutout for today, but anything else you want to share with our brothers?
Well, I would just again echo my thanks to our brothers watching. I know those more inclined to watch are also those more inclined to give back to Phi Gamma Delta. So again, thank you very much for what you do in supporting the fraternity and/or foundation, which ultimately supports the fraternity experience. So we appreciate all that you're doing and that you will do, and know that even though we're talking about potentially some changes in how we operate and how the fraternity and its chapters approach their business, what doesn't change is who we are. It does not change who we are and our core founding values and those things that we believe in most. So we're working to modernize. We're working to make the experience the best it can be for our undergraduate brothers, and show our appreciation to our graduate brothers who help us get there every step of the way.
Thank you, brothers.
Thank you.